Okay, the recording has started. Welcome to the stream. We'll get started here. So we have been going through the Emacs manual, and we have been using Thomas HTML generated documentation from emacsdocs.org site, and we went through the basics to understand the organization of the screen, the what is the point, the echo area, the mode line, menu bar, and then we looked at key user input commands, and then we briefly touched upon entering and exiting Emacs. So I will resume from there. I think I'll add some additional points to that, and then we'll start with the basic editing commands today. Okay, so that's the agenda. So I have introduced a new window here, which you will see on the top. So if I type some keyboard commands, you will see them on the top, which is basically a screen key which displays the commands that I'm typing. So it's useful for you to refer to it later on when you compare the notes, the documentation, and the video together. Okay. So that's the additional window panel that I'm introducing from today's session. So the previous videos I have uploaded them on my channel. So if you missed the introduction to GNU Emacs part, I encourage you to watch this first session. Right. So with that, let's get going with the entering Emacs section. So from the terminal, of course, you can start Emacs with the Emacs command. So I'm at the terminal here, and I can just say Emacs, and it will open the GUI version of it. Okay. This initial frame is the buffer called GNU Emacs, so you can see that here. Now we can also start this from the terminal. So I showed you Emacs-NW, and some of you asked what NW is. So to find out, we can actually check the manual page for Emacs. And if I just search with /NW, okay, this is the no window system. So it tells Emacs not to create a graphical frame. So as you would recall, we call the whole outer as the frame, and then in the frame we have different applications, right? So I'm just going to start it from the terminal, so you get a bigger font size for the mode line. You can see that, you can see the echo area as well. Now the startup screen, as you can see, has information about Emacs, some links to some tutorials that are useful, right? The version, copyright, and so on. So it's useful information for beginners. Of course, you can open the tutorial using Ctrl+T as given here, but we're not going to do the tutorial, this one. Since we are going through the actual manual, we will do it more in detail. But you're welcome to try the tutorial on yourself as an exercise. Now you can also start Emacs using the Emacs client helper program, which is Emacs client. Okay. And you can otherwise also start Emacs with a file name like this, right? You can explicitly specify a file to be opened with Emacs. Now the inhibit startup screen, if this variable is not nil, Emacs does not display the startup screen. That is, for example, if you set it to true, which is the letter T, then Emacs does not display the help and the information when you start Emacs. You can use the initial buffer choice variable, this one, if you want to display a file or directory on startup by default. Okay, those are some customizations that you can do. We will not talk too much about customization right now, but I am telling you about these variables. It's also available in the notes. So in future, when you want to refer to them, you can customize as per your needs. Okay, let's move on to the exiting Emacs. So we have Control X, Control C, which is basically the save buffers kill terminal, which will kill Emacs. So let's try this. Open Emacs, Control X, Control C, that closes Emacs. Okay. You can also, on a terminal, you can suspend Emacs. So you can use Control-Z, which is the suspend frame option, and you can resume from the shell using percentage Emacs. That is also mentioned in the document. So if there are unsaved buffers, then Emacs will prompt you to, it will give a prompt for confirmation to save these buffers. Of course, if you have any sub processes running, it will also ask for confirmation. For a client frame, like if you start with Emacs client, it just simply closes the connection. And sometimes optionally you can also store session information. So next time when you want to start Emacs, it will basically store the session state and it will load it when you start up. So wherever the point, for example, the specific files, the point location, all of that will be restored when you again start Emacs. Now, if the value of this confirm kill Emacs is true or not nil, Control X, Control C basically assumes that there is a predicate function, and every time you kill it, this function will be invoked. Right? If the function returns true, then the session is killed. Otherwise, it just continues to run. So it's like a check function that you can run before you want to close Emacs. So one example of such a function is the yes or no p function. Okay, you can ask to prompt to close or not. There is also the variable confirm kill processes. Right? If it is null, then Control X, Control C does not ask for confirmation before killing the process. Again, these are like small customizations that you can do if you want to. If you don't want to be prompted, you just want to kill Emacs, you can just do Alt X kill Emacs. Okay. And of course, if you want to resume from suspension, it is use the shell command percentage Emacs. So these are some key points that I wanted to address before we move on to the basic editing commands. Good. So let's start with the editing command section. Now, as I said before, you can do like Control HT, which is the help with tutorial option, and you can do the tutorial. So if I do Control H T, it opens the tutorial. It is sort of, it guides you through the process. It tells you what is the control character, what is the meta key, how to stop the tutorial, how to quit partially, and so on. So you can actually follow this and do it. I'm not going to do it right now, but let's exit this one. Control X K, kill buffer default tutorial, yes. Save position in the tutorial, no. Okay, so I'm back to the GNU Emacs buffer. Right. So let's start with inserting text. We are going to go through the entire manual in detail. So let's continue with this. So you can basically type anything in the Emacs buffer. So I'm going to go to the Scratch buffer. So I can just type anything, right? Hello world. This is just keying in characters. Okay. And I can use the enter key for new line, right? I can also use Control J. So use the enter or ret, which is the new line in the buffer, or I can use Control J. Okay. So Control J. Let's clear this. Control J, right? It goes to new line. So there's also an option. Now, of course, you can change the way Emacs handles text insertion by turning on minor modes. Okay, so we will look into these major minor modes separately. Now, there is one mode called autofill mode. So in autofill mode, what happens is that the lines are split automatically when they get too long. So let's say I'm going to type this paragraph as we explain later in this manual. Now this has certain number of columns, right? Text insertion by turning on minor modes, right? Sometimes you want like auto indentation, right? So those things with left alignment, right? So those things are has a specific minor mode of working, and then it automatically split into the next line. So there are some special modes you can use if you're only doing writing. So it's a very good talk from Emacs New York City meetup. Let me quickly show you that. So Emacs New York City meetup, the site is emacsnyc.org. Okay, and they have some good videos for download, and there's one here on Emacs for writers, and this is a link for this talk. Is by Jay Dixit, and he's actually a non-programmer, but he explains in his talk how he's been using Emacs as an editor for doing productive writing work, like the writing without distractions, full screen mode, and a lot of the cool editing minor modes that he uses. And it's a very nice talk. I would encourage you to watch this. I think how long is this talk? It's about an hour. So I think it should be good to watch. Okay. All right. So that's the context for minor mode. Of course, you can use the del key, right? If I do del, it will delete, right? It basically delete backward character. Usually, we don't encourage you to use some of these additional keys in the keyboard, because you want to be using just the main keys in your keyboard rather than these additional ones. So you can also insert non-graphic characters using Control Q or quoted insert. Okay, so let's see an example here. So if I say Control Q, Control Q and del, right? So you get some characters. Now I can also do Control Q 101 B. This inserts AB. Okay. Similarly, you can insert decimal or hexadecimal set variables using read quoted char radix. Right? If you use this to 10 or 16, you can use decimal and hexadecimal values instead of octal values. Now, most of the time we will want Unicode characters to be inserted, and you can do that using control X 8, and then if I use square parenthesis, it enters a backcode. Okay, to show it again, control X 8 square parenthesis gives a backcode. That is explained here. Control X 8 square open parenthesis gives a backcode. Similarly, if I do control X 8 close, it gives the closing quotes. I can do control X 8 open curly parenthesis as the opening quote, control X 8 and close curly parenthesis also gives a close quote. Okay. Now, the documentation also says you can do like alt open, right, which is here not working. I have marked this as a to do to see what is the case here. Basically, what this case is alt open square parenthesis also acts like control X8 open parenthesis. Okay. Now, sometimes you want to find out what is the actual key binding. Let me just leave this off for now. So, if I use control X 8 control H, it tells me for control X 8 and for which character what is the binding, right. So, for example, I can do control X 8 capital C, right, it returns some symbol here. Okay. So, there are different encodings that are available here. I may not have some of the fonts or characters here, but that's the key bindings that are given there, right. So, you can find out for what key binding is available for a key using control X 8 control H. Okay. Now, if you want a specific Unicode name, you can just control X 8 enter, and it prompts for insert character Unicode name or hex value, right. Now, there are quite a number of those glyphs available, Unicode numbers, there are symbols, language specific symbols. There's a huge list is available here, right. So, accordingly the character will be printed on the screen. So, any specific Unicode or mathematical symbols, it's a huge list here. So, you can use this also to insert Unicode characters. So, there are three ways you can input. One is Unicode name, right, that's the convention Unicode name, or you can use a hexadecimal value, right, or you can do a specific radix. So, here they give the example for inserting a same character in different ways. So, for example, to enter the single quote, for example, we have seen that we can do control X 8 enter left single quotation mark. Okay. that returns the backcode for me. I can also insert it using Control X, 8, enter, left, sin tab, so again left single quotation tab mark, enter, right. I can also enter it using Control X, 8, enter, 2018, the code, and it will enter. Or I can simply say Control X, 8 and square parenthesis. I mean, you don't have to remember everything, but I am just telling you what are the different options available to enter Unicode characters. So this is the example given here. Of course, if Alt, so this one, if Alt key works, this is probably not configured in my setup. So this Alt and square parenthesis is undefined in my setup, my default one. Or in this electric quote mode, you can insert the backcode. Now, you can also use a numeric argument to Control Q or Control X8, which specifies how many copies of the character to be inserted. Okay, we will look at arguments later, but it is good to know that you can specify the number of instances of a specific character that you want to insert. Let us move on to changing the location of a point. As we have seen before, the point is where the cursor is, right, and these are some basic commands that you should be familiar with. Let us go through them today. So, to move a point, you can use Control F to move forward. Let me go here. Control F to move forward. You can also use the right arrow key, right? I am using the right arrow key, but generally when you are using Emacs, you do not want to take your hand away from the keyboard and go to the mouse or the arrow keys. You want to be using as much of the main keys that you have, right? So, practice with Control F. There is a Emacs file called No Easy Keys, which I actually use. No Easy Keys, which does not allow you to use arrow keys. This is something I have added. You do not need to set it up right now. As we do customization, you will want to use this so that you do not try to move your hand away from the keyboard and try to use the arrow keys. So, when we do the customization, I will tell you how to add these things. Okay, so that is Control F, and to move backward one character, use Control B. Okay, Control F is forward, Control B is backward. So, you don't need to remember these shortcuts, right? It is just English. The mnemonics are simple. F for forward, B for backward, one character. Of course, you can use the left character, left arrow as well. To go up and down, of course, P is previous, N is next line. Right. This is the corresponding next line, previous line. That's pretty simple to remember. And most of them have been named in such a way that you can actually use them as you get started. Next, we have Control A and Control E. So, Control A goes to beginning of the line, just move beginning of line. Then we have Control E goes to end of line, end and the beginning. Of course, you can also use home and home key, and you can use the end key. So, that will also move the point to the end of the line. But I encourage you to practice and learn Control A and Control E. Of course, we want to do more than that. So, we have moving by word So Alt F is forward one word. So it moves the point in front of the next word. You see, not on the first letter of the word, but just before that. Alt B is backward one word, but it will move to the beginning of the previous word. Okay, there's a difference there. You can use somebody control right, same, but I encourage you to use Alt F and Alt B. I'm just showing it because it's there in the manual here. Right? Control right, Alt right, Alt B, Control left. Because you can do Alt left, leftward, same as Alt B. In some editing, it's called bidirectional editing. Sometimes people want to write from right to left, right? So in those cases, Alt left will move forward by one word if the current paragraph is right to left. Now, if you want to reposition the point to the left margin, the centermost text of the line, without moving the text, you use Alt R. It's also the same as move to window line top bottom. Basically, you want to center the whole buffer across the point, right? So then you use Alt R. If we have a bigger file, I will probably be able to show that. So this is the Twitch one, right? So I'm doing Control N, going down. The cursor now is in Boolean. If I press Alt R, so the cursor moves to the center of the window. Right? That's Alt R. Okay. So on subsequent invocations, it moves to the topmost line, bottommost line, and so forth. So if I press Alt R again, it moves to top, then bottom, center, top, bottom, center. Okay, so it's sort of cyclic in nature. Then we have Alt less than symbol, which goes to the beginning of the buffer. Okay, and Alt greater than symbol goes to the end of the buffer. How do I know it's the end of the buffer? Because you see bottom here in the mode line, right? If I do Alt less than, the mode line says it's top. I'm in line 1. That also indicates that I'm in the top of the buffer. If I want to scroll down one page, I can do Control V. So now I'm at 2%, line 40. You can see this in the mode line. Again, I do Control V, 3%, line 79, and so on. Of course, you can use page down, next, all those keys on the keyboard you can use, but as I said, I encourage you to use Control V. To scroll back one screen, Alt V, 118, line 80, and back to top. Okay, so that's page down and page up, and the corresponding definitions here are scroll down command and scroll up command. Now you can read a number n and move the point to a buffer position n. So the beginning of the buffer position is 1. There's Alt G C. Let's try that. Say do Alt G C, say 100, goes to the 100th character in the buffer. Okay, I can do Alt GG. Let's go back to the top. Alt less than. then I say Alt G, G, go to line 100. This is line 100 because I know it says in the mode line it's line 100. Okay. Now you can of course configure Emacs to show the line numbers as well. So that's something that if you want you can do that. Again, those are all customizations that you can play around with. Alt G tab, scroll down here. Alt G tab reads the number and moves to a specific column in the current line. So let's go to the top and say Alt G tab. So I want to go to move to column 6. Okay, that's in column number 6. I don't have the column numbers displayed in the mode line, but we can do that as well. Control X, Control N are used for the current column of point as the semi-permanent goal column, the current buffer, and to cancel the goal column use Control U, Control X, Control N. We'll look at some examples on these later on, especially when you're doing like copying and editing. Now you can force Emacs to move according to the logical lines, that is the text lines in the buffer. Now in this example, for example, we don't have a lot of text. Let me move to the maybe backtrace doesn't have anything. Go to Emacs, right? So when I am in this line, for example, if I do Control N, it's the same line, right? It's just a continuation. But sometimes you want to go to the next logical line, the sentence line, the text line, right? So you can basically configure this line move visual variable to do that. That's what is given here. Okay. Especially when you're doing text editing. And you're writing and you want to move to the next line, you want to mean the next sentence line and not necessarily the next line that is shown in the buffer. Then you can set those variables. So if the logical line occupies multiple screen lines, the cursor will skip over the additional lines and go to the next sentence. When line move visual is nil, and if you also set track end of line to true, then Control N and Control P, the next and previous, will start and end on the logical line and move accordingly. By default, the track end of line is set to nil. Of course, setting this variable next line add new lines to non-nil, this variable here, set it to true, for example, and if you go to the end of the buffer and you hit Control N, it will basically create a new line and it will move the point to it. All right, it's a lot of commands here. I would like you to try these. Start Emacs, do basic navigation, and exit Emacs. Okay, so that's the homework exercise that I would like you to try, and then in the next session we will continue with this section and we'll look at erasing text, undoing changes, and so on. Okay. With that, let me stop the recording and let me know if you have any questions.